Good morning, everybody. Welcome to what I guess we should call a special edition of Business with Blaine. I say good morning because I've got with me today Colin Brown, who's an Evertonian. He's also a chartered accountant. He was, because he's retired now, a partner with what is currently the largest accountancy and audit firm in the world, Deloitte. He qualified as an accountant with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he's worked with other smaller companies like KPMG and people like that. Colin is also a consultant for the Institute of Chartered Accountants, which means he helps, I guess, them make sure their accountants know what they're doing. And he's previously worked with the Financial Reporting Council in the UK, which is basically the regulatory body. Colin, though, it's the evening for Colin because he's in Brisbane, Australia, where he lives now, although curiously, I'll probably just emphasise his credentials as an Evertonian. He's still a season ticket holder in the Lower Gladys. He has, which his nephew is very lucky enough to use. He has a house in Formby, and he's got the inside track and what goes on as well because his sister sits on the fans forum for Everton. So welcome, Colin. You look happy. So we did have a chat about when we were setting this up that the game at the weekend could have had us both looking quite miserable. So I hope you got to watch the game and that you enjoyed it.
I did, mate. Yeah, the Aussies do broadcast all the Premier League games. It's just that they're on some ungodly hours, and so I think I probably woke up a couple of the neighbours when we scored both goals. It was early hours in the mornings for here, so yeah, that was a good morning for me.
Oh, good man. So let's get into this. I mean, I jokingly have said in the past that, and I hope it doesn't come to pass, by the way, that it will be accountants or forensic accountants even, and barristers who will perhaps determine who gets relegated this year. And the reason you and I engaged was, I think you picked up on something that was said about the treatment of interest on loans for the stadium, and obviously and subsequently during the last independent commission, the one that we're going to appeal for, they set aside the debate about the accounting policies and practices around the treatment of interest on the construction of the stadium because they said they would run out of time, and I think you have out of time to debate it. I think you have quite firm views on those accounting practices and what is right and what is wrong. So how's about you telling me and the audience, with all your experience, when you saw, perhaps as an Evertonian, that the judge was saying, oh, this is very difficult and complicated, and the Premier League, of course, are claiming that the interest cannot be counted in our favour for PSR, what your view was?
What do you want, the polite version?
I think if you keep it clean, you can say what you like.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, that this is a difficult thing to do. I mean, my background is with the professional firms. I didn't work for KPMG.
Oh, beg your pardon, sorry.
I did work for Ernst & Young and Arthur Andersen.
Oh, sorry, you led audit inspections for KPMG, though, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I've remembered it from. Sorry.
I did join the Financial Reporting Council in the UK when it was set up audit inspection of the accounting firms, and I wrote all the inspection work programs for the teams to go out to. I led the teams for PricewaterhouseCoopers and KPMG. That's where that one comes from. But I spent a lot of my life in the oil and gas and mining industries where they do big projects, big construction projects, and they spend a lot of money there. So when I heard that the commission had decided this was too difficult to decide quickly, quite frankly, I just couldn't understand what on earth they were saying. This is not a difficult area. It basically surrounds 3 international accounting standards. And just a bit more context there, the International Accounting Standards Board prepare and issue what we call International Financial Reporting Standards, which are sort of global accounting standards that most countries follow. It gives comparability of financial statements, financial information. And the UK have adopted them pretty much in the FRS 102, which are the financial reporting standards. And that's a standard that the auditors refer to in their audit report on Everton's accounts. And so there are basically three standards. One is IAS 16, which is property, plant and equipment. The other one is IAS 23, which is actually refers to borrowing costs and how you can capitalize them. And basically the other one, which is relevant to Everton, is International Accounting Standard number 8, which talks about changes in accounting policies. And they're the three of them. They're not very long. They're not very difficult to understand. And that's why I find it extremely difficult to believe that they have they believe it will take a long time to go into and resolve.
I mean, that's very dry, and but it also sounds, as you rightly say, well, to me anyway, really quite simple. And it's curious for me, and I would welcome your comment, both professionally, I guess, but also as an Evertonian, that when we went to the PSR for case one, which we ultimately ended up with rather a large points deduction, it looked like Everton hadn't fully exploited the potential for capitalisation of these costs, but they seem to have corrected that for case two, much to the annoyance, it appears, to the Premier League. What was your view in and around that time? Because, as you rightly say, it's quite simple. So why weren't, in your view, Everton taking advantage of it for the first case, never mind the second one?
Yeah, I think it was a bit difficult time at Everton for accounting and auditing. They changed their auditors from Deloitte in 2020 to BDO. Then they just started to incur interest costs at that point, and I think they incurred about 480,000 at the time, and so I don't know the quality of the accounting finance department. It appears they wrote it off against income.
They did. They expensed it. Yeah, they expensed it. Yeah,
which under the UK accounting standard you can do. And it's probably not a material figure at the time. Materiality is a big thing in sort of the accounting and auditing profession. If it's not material to the total assets or income of the organisation, then nobody really cares about the figure. So they put that one in. And then at the end of that year, they changed auditors from BDO to
Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think from memory, there was a lot of debate as to whether they were changing auditors, and it dragged on a bit. And then BDO were only there for 1 year. Crow came in at the next year, when the major interest was being, a lot of the interest was being recorded. And I think what they may have looked at is a consistency of accounting policy implementation, which is another big thing in the accounting profession, the consistency of applying accounting principles for comparability purposes. And they were probably under a lot of pressure to get the accounts out as well, having been appointed a bit late in the day. And so for Everton to get the filing statements ready to go. And so they may have accepted that accounting policy at the time. And I think then when they've had a bit more time to think about it, and some of the stuff that came out from the first independent tribunal, where they said, you can't have this you can't have it as a capitalization. So I think Crow will have actually gone through an awful lot of work to make sure that they could change that accounting policy. And they will have documented that, and they'll have gone through a very thorough process. You can sorry to get all dry again.
No, it's
but
okay.
The international accounting standards allow you to capitalize costs, interest costs. There's a standard, it's called borrowing costs, and it gives you the criteria to capitalize those interest costs. And in fact, it does say that's what you should do with interest costs for property, plant, and equipment, is capitalize it. The UK give you a second option of expensing it, which I suspect is what they did in the first instance. The international accounting people, though, they have a core principle, which says that borrowing costs that are directly attributable to the acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset form part of the cost of that asset. And that's their core principle in the international accounting standards. If you sort of change your accounting policy, which is basically what Everton did in capitalizing their interest costs, you can do that. It's no problem, so long as the results of the financial statements providing reliable, more relevant information about the effects of the transaction. So their core principle is you would capitalize that interest, and that would give you a more relevant and reliable information. The other kicker on the accounting policy note change is you have to do it retrospectively as well. So you have to change your comparative figures. Everton have actually gone back down to 2021.
No, that's exactly right. And you know, as a layperson observing this going on, it almost appears to be because that's how we as a football club have upset the Premier League, because they reserved judgment to comment on the £19 million of capitalisation that was in the most recent accounts. But then they wanted to change the complaint when they realised that we were also claiming, retrospectively, another, whatever it was, £6 million, I think, if I remember correctly. So clearly both those numbers added together some £25 million, and therefore our PSR could very well have been £25 million higher than the 16.6, which Everton have subsequently been punished for. I'm fond of saying, actually, Colin, it's, we don't know what we don't know. And my summary of what you've just said would very much be Everton are completely legitimately capitalising these according to international standards. They, through their auditors, have signed all this off. They've done the right thing and addressed it retrospectively as well. So do you have a view of what it could be that we don't know that makes the Premier League think that that this isn't legitimate, and that some dialogue has gone on with the judge, which has resulted in saying this is a complex matter and we'll deal with it later? What could have happened, do you think, that allows the Premier League to think this is a problem when you so clearly think it's very simple and Everton are totally, allowed to do what they've done?
Honestly, I have no idea why they would not think this was appropriate. It's gone through an audit process. The auditors are subject to their own audit regulation with the FRC. They've disclosed what's happened. It's in the financials. It's well within the accounting standards. So I can only think there's another agenda. And I think certainly for the second one, where they're saying you can't have it, and if it actually means that Everton shouldn't have been sanctioned anyway, they don't want to look idiots, basically, which is what they do. And the chair of the parliamentary inquiry told them they don't know what they're doing. And it's pretty clear that to try and say you can't have that interest to capitalise it is based on the information we've got at the moment. I just don't see it.
Well, me neither. So let me ask you and don't go away, people. It's not going to be too technical, but
sorry.
No. I think it's important for us, and the gravity of this is obviously huge. But we can have a simple understanding to what a judge may think is a complex situation when he's a lawyer and he's not an accountant. But when we went through, Everton, when Crowe did the audit, would they have validated that the money which we are capitalising was definitely interest on money that we spent on the stadium, because that's what the Premier League argued in case one, that the money in question was not spent on the stadium. Will Crowe emphatically have tested that? Yes, I can see where the money came from, I can see where it was spent, and therefore it can be capitalised against this asset.
Well, I would rather hope they did. As I say, they would have been well aware that this was a sensitive issue that they needed to have a good look at, and that they know they're under regulatory inspection from the FRC anyway. So I'm pretty sure that they would have gone through a very robust process to make sure that that's what happened. And if you do look at Everton's accounts, there are interest expenses in the income statement. So they've gone there. Somebody's looked at these interest expenses and said, "Okay, that's capital, that's operational."
That's not. Yeah.
So and they've charged the not bit into the income statement against the profit. The rest of it is rightly being capitalised in accordance with the standards.
Okay, so notwithstanding the Premier League appear to be demonstrating a desire to be the accounting standards decision maker as well as being the regulator of football, yeah. Why didn't the judge just say, no, this has been audited by a reputable third party, it's all compliant, or what? Indeed, why didn't our barrister say it? It's all compliant with international and UK standards. There's no case here. What the heck are you talking about? How has it come? I'm asking you an impossible question, I suppose. How has it come to it's kick the can down the road time, and we may get a punishment sometime in the future? Or do you suspect it'll just be quietly forgotten about because all the work will be done offline and the actual case down the line will be almost like a quick hearing where they say no case to answer, dismissed, go away?
Yeah, but if they do say that, then if there's no case to answer, then why? That we've still got 2 points that we're desperately in need of. And so if they say it next season now, yeah, well, we got it wrong. Don't worry, lads. Now, I appreciate sort of the recent result was very good for us. But if we get relegated and they come out next season and say, well, sorry, lads, yeah, we got it wrong, you know, what can we do about that?
Well, I think that's perhaps what's happening, to be honest, Colin, because as you rightly said before, because the accounts have been restated, then that changes the size of the PSR breach for case one, which clearly might have also changed the size of the punishment that we got, notwithstanding it already looks too high at 6 points. So, but all this has been done with the agreement of Everton, hasn't it? So maybe, just maybe, it's one of those things where we literally do not know the reason, and maybe it'll come out in the future. If you were working at Crowe, what would you be thinking at the moment as the auditor? Because this, in my mind, again, as a layperson, this is questioning the accuracy of Everton's accounts, but it's also indirectly, I guess, questioning the competence of the audit firm. What do you think Crowe are thinking at this time?
You've seen all the furore over what's Notts Forest said at the weekend about the person in charge of VAR and questioning his integrity. If I was Crowe, I'd be in the same position that the Premier League are questioning the integrity of my firm. They've got no regulatory right over the audit profession, the Premier League, to doubt what Crowe have said. They've signed off on the audit report. They've done their work. They've done it in accordance with audit standards as well. They are subject to regulatory review. So the Premier League sticking their nose in and trying to question what Crowe have done is just unacceptable. And that's the point of you having your auditors there. They sign off. Sometimes audits go bad, but there are very, very rare occasions when audits go bad. And Crowe will have been inspected by the FRC. I've got every confidence that they've gone through a very rigorous process to get to the answer they've got to. They've disclosed it in the accounts. It's all within the accounting standards. It's all within the audit standards. The only other thing I can think of is the old cigar smoke-filled room sitting in leather chairs where these people have got together and said, let's go and make an example of somebody. Because if you look at Chelsea, Chelsea, actually, when Bowie has taken them over, he did his due diligence and found all of these offshore payments that never went through the books of Chelsea. And he's given those allegedly, he's given all the documents to the Premier League to look at, and they haven't done anything with it. I mean, they've got the evidence, they've got the problem, and this is far worse than what Everton have been accused of.
It is a bit crazy, the Chelsea thing, because you're quite right. It's approaching a year now since the new owners of Chelsea found something, post-acquisition. And they set aside, by the way, which I wrote a Substack on it about unforeseen liabilities. They set aside £100 million to cover anything that might flow from this, Yeah. And within months, UEFA had accepted their guilty plea, fined them, and moved on. And Richard Masters and his mates at the Premier League apparently are still investigating. And there's no sign of when that investigation will come to a conclusion. And yet, Nottingham Forest and Everton have been through multiple ICs and multiple appeal boards. So it is a bit, appears to be different treatments of the same type of issue, depending on not necessarily the colour of your shirt, because obviously Chelsea play in blue as well, but certainly where you're perceived in the hierarchy of big clubs to small clubs. And Richard Masters will take that phrase to the grave with him, I would imagine. The only thing I could think, perhaps to finish off, Colin, on this bit, and then we'll talk a little bit about football. I run a number of businesses back in the day when I was working for a living, and I would sit across the table from our auditors, and sometimes it was Deloitte, and most famously when I was running a business in Lisbon, Portugal, and arguing with a auditor about the certain treatment of certain items, if you will, because I wanted my numbers to look better than they looked without it being treated that way. And my last port of call was always to say, it's a management view. In other words, it's not factual. I think that is going to happen. Therefore, I want that in my statements, if you will. Is there anything in anywhere near what we're talking about where a management view could hold sway, and therefore the Premier League think they can influence the outcome by having a different management view?
The Premier League are not management of Everton Football Club. I mean, there are several grey areas in accounting at times, and the auditor's job is to sort of navigate you through those grey areas, and you get to a resolution that is within the allowed standards, audit standards, and accounting standards. Masters and his cohorts have got nothing to do with how Everton management do. It's up to the board to sign off on the accounting policies that they've done. It's not up to Masters to sign off on them. The accounting policies are in accordance with the UK accounting standards and a lot of IFRS accounting standards. So, don't get me started on this one. I'll rant all night. But,
okay, well, let's shut it down.
We know he doesn't know what he's doing. It's clear. The Parliamentary Commission have said that. So
no,
there's no argument about it.
I think you're right.
He still tries to go on.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the Premier League's problem is they seem to think, and clearly Nottingham Forest have reacted adversely to this when they found the result of their independent commission. The Premier League want you to do as they say. Whether it's contrary to your best interests or not, they seem to think that compliance with PSR should involve, best endeavours, which is crazy. But interestingly,
there are no rules to that.
No, absolutely, and that's the point. That's why they rightly can be accused of making it up as they go along. And just to remind the people who are watching this, you're a retired partner from the biggest accounting audit firm in the world, and you're saying there's nothing wrong with this. So that's just crazy. So we'll finish with that for now, if that's okay. But I'm going to ask you what you think is going to happen tomorrow, because we've got a big game tomorrow. Thoughts about that one, and perhaps the game at the weekend? Because when we were setting this up, you were suggesting your wrists might have been a bit bloody if we'd lost the last game. Are you feeling a bit better now? And what do you think is going to happen over the next couple of games?
Yeah, no, my wrists are nicely still intact. Thank you very much. I fully expect a 5-0 victory tomorrow for the Mighty Blues. Actually, if we get a draw, I think that would be a good result for us. I was a bit put off by Brentford's performance at the weekend. I sort of watched the highlights of them. God, they've got a couple of good players there. But I still think we can do them at Goodison. And if we can get the 2 points back, if we can get these idiots at the Premier League to look at this, or any appeal commission to look at this issue about borrowing costs, we get another 2 points, so we're safe.
Well, I rather hope we'll be safe by this time next week anyway. So time is running out for Luton, who clearly their owners seem to think they're the most hard done by in this process, which is a bit perverse. And of course, tomorrow could be a big day because you never know. Nottingham Forest may regret going to appeal for what I think was a very generous 4-point deduction. And whilst it's probably too dangerous for the Premier League to do it, you never know. They may get more points. You never know.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. You never know what will happen. It's it's unbelievable. None of those commissions have come out with the same consistency in approach and the penalties that have been issued. It's just completely ridiculous.
I think they are fine words to finish with, Colin. Yeah. So I thank you for your time and hope you can enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of the day is ahead of us. So thanks again, and you take care, my friend.
Yeah, well, if Mr. Masters wants me to help him through this, just give him my name and contact number, mate.
I will do that, although you may not be impartial. You are a very experienced accountant. So thanks again. Take care, Colin. Have a nice evening. Take care.
Yeah. Cheers, John. Look after yourself.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.